Good evening and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep. For the next 2 hours, the 4 of us are at your service to help you ace the Civil Services examination. Ask us anything related to the Civil Services examination and we shall guide you to the best of our capability, to the best of our ability. Questions can be, how do I start preparing for this examination? How do I master current affairs? How to prepare for prelims and mains? How to choose an optional for the mains examination? How do I stay motivated for this examination? Ask us anything, shoot your questions, and we are delighted to have you on our program today, live, and take up your questions. But those of you who have just started your preparation, who are unaware of what this exam is all about, give me a moment. Each year, the Union Public Service Commission, which is the central recruiting agency of the Government of India, conducts an examination known as the Civil Services Examination. And it's a 3-tier examination system. There are 3 stages: prelims, followed by mains, and then the personality test. And if you qualify all the 3 stages in one go, depending upon your rank, depending upon your preference, you can become an IAS officer, an IPS officer, IFS officer, IRS officer, an officer of various central services. But what it takes to qualify this prestigious examination? Let me bring in my colleagues now to this discussion, live interaction with our students for the next 2 hours. Civil Services examination is arguably considered to be the world's, or at least India's, toughest examination. What are the key things that a student has to keep in mind while preparing for this examination? And how can a student stay motivated? I'll tell you a story. Today morning, I was looking at my WhatsApp and I saw a status of one of my our student, an IPS officer now. He put up a status wearing a uniform. And I was recalling his preparation days. No offense to him, but he was not the most talented student to qualify this examination, which reminded me of another student I'm in touch with for the past 2 to 3 days now, a university topper, a brilliant student, and for the past 2 attempts, he or she is not able to cross the mains hurdle. What do you say? How do you tell a student to stay motivated? That's the key question that a student has to start with. What's your take?
Well, preparing for the UPSC exam has always been a dream for most of the aspirants, for lakhs of aspirants in the country. So when you set a goal, when you think that civil services is the domain for you, the dream is what should be driving you throughout your preparation. Yes, I understand there will be ups and downs in your preparation. There would be days you won't be motivated to study enough. There are possibilities where you don't clear the prelims or the mains in the very first or second attempt. So those are the times where you think of your dream. You think of why you started this, why you set out on this path, which is quite a unique path as a career option. There are many reasons why UPSC is a motivating factor for lakhs of aspirants in the country. First is, of course, a very exciting career option, a very diverse career option. There is no other domain probably which gives you so many variety of options in your long career. The other thing is your motivation to serve the country, the option to help lakhs of people, millions of people, to make those key decisions and make a change in the society, to be the change that you aspire to be. And of course, the other factor would be your own personal growth, your own status as well for some. So I think these factors are something you should keep in mind and keep reminding yourself every now and then whenever you feel low, and have a system in place where you revisit those dreams, why you started on this path, and I think that should take you forward.
I think, is it correct to say that there are only 2 kinds of aspirants? One who give up and the other who don't. And if you don't give up, you will definitely clear this examination. J.K. Rowling, for example, one of the most celebrated authors of all time, her books have been translated into multiple languages, made into movies as well, one of the world's bestseller. She got her debut novel rejected by 12 publishing houses. Yet today, and she was also living on the welfare of the state. She was a single woman, got divorced, yet she persisted and persevered. And that's how a student should keep in mind that there will be ups and downs, as you correctly said, but at the end of the day, why is it so important for me to qualify this examination? Do I want status in the society, power, prestige in the society? Is it my great-great-grandfather's dream? Or is it I want to teach a lesson to an irritating uncle in my neighborhood that I want to tell you now, see what I've done. I have cleared a prestigious examination. So one thing that a student has to necessarily keep in mind is there will be ups and downs. But if my career objective is clear, that I want to become an IAS officer, you will definitely clear this exam if you don't give up. The moment you give up, you have lost the battle. What do you think?
So while I partly agree with you that perseverance is the key in this case, but there just a sheer perseverance does not mean a key to success. Because as far as this examination is concerned, this examination, its pattern, everything keeps on evolving year after year. And thereby, we have to learn from our own mistakes. That self-learning process is something which is very essential. Otherwise, as has already been pointed out, that lakhs of candidates appear for this examination year after year. You still have lakhs of candidates who keep on repeating the same thing year after year. They will commit the same mistakes again and again and again. As a result of that, you are stuck in that vicious cycle where you are wasting precious time and your precious career as well. Time is the biggest resource that you have right now. So while perseverance is absolutely essential, right? Giving up is not an option in this case. But at the same time, from each and every day, we have to extract some learning. We have to understand that if we are, let's say, studying a particular subject, are we overstressing on that? Or are we keeping a balanced view in terms of the syllabus? Are we practicing enough? Or if, let's say, something which is very common in this domain, that is failure. Let's say we face failure at the stage of the prelims or the mains or even at the interview. Chances are that the next time that we appear, we might end up committing the same mistake. So that is where we have to be very cognizant of our own errors, of our own mistakes. We have to follow a kind of a standard operating procedure with regards to dedication as well as what we do on a day-to-day basis if we are particular enough that tomorrow we are going to learn more than what we knew today. I'm sure the future will be bright in that case.
And keeping in mind, there are three things that you must keep in mind while preparing for the examination. The first thing, the moment you decide that I want to appear in the civil services examination, keep your motivation at the back of your mind. What motivates you to write this examination? Why is it so important for you to clear this exam? Once you are self-motivated, then comes dedication. Bring an element of routine, discipline in your preparation, which can be one newspaper a day, 2 chapters from a particular subject, but there has to be a timetable that you must stick to. And then comes guidance. Somebody has got to tell you what to study, how to study, but most importantly, what not to study. Some of the questions, we have the question from Ravi, how to prepare for current affairs and the UPSC exam. Chethan sir.
Well, current affairs is a dominating part of this examination. Of course, there's a static part as well, but if you look at the previous papers, be it prelims or be it mains, most questions are driven by current affairs. It plays a critical role in the examination. So when you prepare for current affairs, of course, the sources that you refer really matters. The first step, of course, is your newspaper. Your newspaper reading is something you have to do consistently on a daily basis. Pick the newspaper of your choice, either the Hindu or the Indian Express, a good newspaper that brings out quality articles, in-depth research articles, which is in line with our syllabus. So newspaper reading is something you can't compromise on. Other than that, there are a number of websites, number of official websites of the government, websites of international organizations, etc., from where you can draw authentic information. So be consistent, ensure that you prepare for current affairs on a regular basis, and this has to be a daily effort. Every day, at least 1 hour or 2 hours has to be put in for current affairs preparation. And when you're reading current affairs, try to map it with your syllabus. Try to see where you can connect it with your topics, the core topics given by UPSC. And also ensure you revise consistently, because current affairs is something you can't recollect very easily over a long period of time. So revision on a weekly basis, monthly, would be a great a value addition as well. And also don't forget, when you're finding newspaper reading to be difficult, right, that's where we come in. We have a number of initiatives going on our YouTube channel. We have the daily Hindu analysis where we go live at 10 a.m. every day. And we try to simplify your newspaper reading. Because we've seen many students, they say that reading the Hindu is very complicated for us. I don't understand the language. I don't understand or I don't comprehend what the article is conveying. So that is where we come in. If you watch the analysis videos, it can cut short your preparation time. Instead of spending 2-3 hours in newspaper reading, bring it down to, let's say, 40-45 minutes, and thereby make your preparation more effective.
And ask yourself, when you start preparing for this examination, the first thing that you do is you buy a book or a magazine. But please remember one thing, UPSC does not recommend NCERTs. UPSC does not recommend M. Lakshmikant for polity or Nitin Singhania for economics. UPSC does not even recommend the Hindu newspaper. There are only 2 official documents released by the UPSC, and this is where most of the aspirants neglect those 2 documents. One document, the syllabus of this examination. UPSC Civil Services examination is not the world's toughest exam. The syllabus is well defined. All you have to do, complete every topic one by one, link it with current events of national and international importance, problem solved. So the syllabus of this examination is well defined. That's number one. Syllabus will tell you what to study. But how do you study it? For that, you have to look at another official document released by the UPSC, which are these previous year's question papers. Please do not neglect these 2 documents. You might have heard somebody advising you, telling you that UPSC asks everything under the sun. That's not correct. There is a well-defined syllabus for this examination, which is going to tell you what all you have to study. Then, how do you study this topic? For that, you have to look at the previous year's question papers. And by looking at the previous year's question papers, you will realize that current affairs is a dominant theme. Sometimes 70% questions in prelims are asked from current affairs. If you look at mains examination, GS paper 2 and 3, dominated by current affairs. You can say, if I read only the Hindu newspaper, I will be able to score well in GS2 as well as GS3. So current affairs is important, but link it with the static portion. So static portion, link it with current affairs, problem solved. Keep in mind 3 things. One, as I told you before, motivation is the key, followed by discipline and guidance by somebody who can be a professor, who can be your teacher, who can be your friend, who can be somebody who has already cleared this examination. He or she can guide you what he or she did while preparing for this exam. Maybe that strategy won't work for everybody, but at least you will get a clue. But there are other things that you have to keep in mind. One, apply the knowledge that you have gained by taking mocks, whether it is for prelims test series or mains test series, solving lots and lots of MCQs. The more, the better. There is no shortcut to success. So these are the key things that you have to keep in mind. Current affairs is an important aspect of this examination, but current affairs, you have to also link it with the static portion. For example, Serge, there was a question in last year's prelims examination which talked about Chauset Yogini temple. Now, somebody would say, how was this question asked by the UPSC? Do I have to remember every kind of architecture that is there in India? That would leave me to study only the history or art and culture part, but where is the time left for other subjects? But this question was asked because a new parliament is being constructed right now. And the old parliament, which is the existing parliament, its architecture, it's argued, is based on the Chauset Yogini temple in Madhya Pradesh, Morena. So you have to link it with current events of national importance. Same goes with economics. What do you suggest for economics, sir? Economics, current affairs for the civil services examination?
Regarding economics, what I would simply suggest is reading one newspaper will not be sufficient. For example, recently there has been a lot of discussion regarding Government of India making the food grains under NFSA free of a cost. Most of the coverage that has been done in Hindu, because most of the students prefer Hindu and read Hindu. What has been the coverage? Coverage has been around the factual information regarding NFSA. How many food grains, how much kgs, how many people, how much will be the cost, etc., etc. But what I expect from UPSC is not these kind of questions. Of course, factual information is required, no doubt, if you are writing, let's say, mains paper. But when you are writing a mains paper, the question will be more of a nature of, let's say, critically analyzing this issue. That is where I would want the students to go beyond Hindu newspaper, read Hindu newspaper, no issues. But along with that, I would simply recommend that prefer, let's say, one more additional business related newspaper. For example, Indian Express, there was an explained session or explained column regarding NFSA itself. That will give you a lot of information beyond what is actually provided in Hindu newspaper. So in this regard, reading only Hindu will not be sufficient, and reading no newspaper will also not help you in regarding or answering the current affairs in any paper, be it polity, be it economics, etc. But my suggestion will be, try to add on to the current affairs, or let's say the static portion with the current affairs that comes in Hindu plus some more newspaper, especially regarding economy.
How does a student make notes of what is happening in the country or in international politics? Note making is important, but should we recommend a student that you start making notes of every article that appears in the newspaper? What should be the strategy to follow while making notes? How often should they revise? What do you suggest?
So in that case, I would basically say that note making is very important. First of all, it eases your process of revision. It makes the process of revision very efficient and very quick. But at the same time, note making doesn't mean simply copying whatever is present in the newspaper. For example, when we talk about note making from the newspaper, first of all, we have to analyze the cost benefit associated with it. Is it absolutely beneficial? So there can be a school of thought that, for example, if you are reading a newspaper on a daily basis, you can always end up revising the month's current affairs with the help of a monthly magazine, and thereby analyze if you are missing out on certain important article or not. Wherever you have found a certain important, let's say, judgment of a Supreme Court, or let's say any particular act which has been in discussion, thereby you can make a note of it. But if you are making notes, one thing that you have to always keep in mind, that notes have to be very, very clear and have to be sanitized on a regular basis. So when I say sanitized on a regular basis, what do I mean by that? So first of all, let's suppose we are making notes from newspapers. First thing that you have to do is keep separate files. Let's say you have kept a piece of paper for polity, a separate file for economy, for international relations, for environment, and so on. Now, what does generally happen is that generally a news or a news headline which is in prominence, chances are there will be a development on that story, and it might also happen that the news article which you felt was important basically after a point of time becomes irrelevant. So every 15 to 20 days, you have to go through the notes that you have prepared, and even while preparing the notes, please again, do not simply copy the article. Maybe a couple of important pointers. And here you have to analyze and understand why you are making those notes. You are not making those notes so that these notes will be circulated in the market and future candidates will be buying that. You are making those notes so that you will be able to revise that in a very short period of time, immediately before the examination. So the note should be very concise, to the point, and it should be made in such a way that even if you take a minute glimpse of that notes, it should give you an idea about what you want to recall. So after every 20 days or 15 days, when you remove the unwanted news stories which you feel are not very important anymore, at the end of the month, you will get the monthly magazines of current affairs, which is very prevalent in the market itself. So any monthly magazine that you have of your choice, just take a look at that, whether you have missed out on something or whether there is a point that you feel should be included in those notes. And here, note making or the portion of current affairs and regular revision on a fortnightly or a weekly basis, it also solves the purpose of your answer writing. For example, many of us, when we think about the portion of current affairs, we generally associate it with direct questions which are asked. But we fail to realize that portions of current affairs, they not only make our answers in GS papers much more authentic, they make our answers more relatable. Even for example, let's say you are given an essay topic which is absolutely philosophical. There, the notes that you have made, the data pointers, few of the important data pointers that you have made. For example, the doctor to patient ratio or the doctor to population ratio that we have. For example, the out-of-pocket expenditure that an average individual Indian does incur. So all that factor will automatically add and make your answer very, very authentic, and it will give you a minor advantage, which is for each GS subjects, you can expect an advantage of around 20 or 25 marks. So think about it, at least 3 GS papers, if you gain that advantage comes out to be close to around 75 marks.
But Mukesh sir, let me interrupt you here, sorry. I am a student. I know this is the syllabus for my examination. I know I have to follow current affairs. I open the newspaper, let's say the often recommended newspaper, the Hindu newspaper. Do I have to read it from page number 1 till end? Let's say if not, then which are the topics that I need to understand and read? I don't know because I've just started my preparation. Even if I know that this topic is important, how deep do I have to dig into this newspaper article? How do I gather the background information? For example, what is happening between India and China on the line of actual control? For example, your subject, international relations, something happened at the Tawang sector. But unless and until I know the background of India-China relationship, I would not be able to understand that topic. I would not be able to understand that newspaper article. So suggest something that I should follow on a regular basis so that I know current affairs is important, but how do I cover current affairs? Where do I get the background information? Does that mean that all the time I have to sit on Google, search the related developments, and then make notes? Then I'm left with no time to prepare for other subjects.
Exactly. So if you spend all your time in doing the background research and making notes, you would be wasting a lot of your time. This is this is the luxury you can't afford, right? So when it comes to background for any particular topic, like sir was mentioning India-China border issues. So that is where your static books or your standard books come into picture. Have a standard book in place where you can refer, you can read up on these issues which are frequently in news. Try to link the current affairs topic with the syllabus. See what is relevant for the exam. Let's say if you look at international relations syllabus, the UPSC syllabus clearly says that India's ties with its neighboring countries is absolutely critical, right? And since you read an article related to India-China border tensions, link that with India and its neighborhood. Then go to your static book or any source, any static source you're referring to, read about India-China border issues. What was the history? What was the background? Spend a little bit of time in doing the background research for these bigger topics. But I wouldn't recommend doing extensive research for the smaller topics, for the more factual topics, prelims-oriented topics.
Or let me give you a solution. You know current affairs is important. You read a newspaper. There are lots of articles that you have to read, but you have absolutely no idea about the background of that topic. Let's say, for example, United Nations. What are the principal organs of the United Nations? You have to read about them. But this can be relevant for your prelims examination. You have to look at it from both prelims as well as mains perspective, and at the same time. So we need reform in United Nations Security Council. India has a legitimate right to be a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council. Why? For that, I'll give you a simple solution. Read newspaper on a regular basis, but don't make notes. How? There are lots of initiatives that we have on our website as well as on our YouTube channel. For example, we'll show you some of the initiatives that we have on our YouTube channel, the newly launched initiatives beginning January 2, 2023. Let's take a look at the screen and see the kind of initiatives that we have on our YouTube channel. So long story short, if you need a quick tip on how to prepare for current affairs, watch our daily newspaper analysis every day on our YouTube channel, but read newspaper on your own. Do not skip newspaper. Read it because You will gain a lot of insight when you are reading newspapers that will help in your answer writing as well. Because listen to me carefully. Prelims is about recall power. There is a question, there are 4 options, you have to pick the right answer, you have to pick the most appropriate answer. So you have read that topic somewhere in the past and you will be able to recall, or you may be able to recall. But when it comes to mains examination, you have to come up with an answer. And this examination, prelims is only qualifying in nature. If the cutoff, for example, is 99, it doesn't matter whether you score 100 or 200. These marks will not be counted. The marks that you score in mains and the personality test will be added to determine whether you are able to clear this exam and what is going to be your rank, whether you are able to achieve your dream of becoming an IAS or an IPS officer. For that, answer writing is the key. But how do you write an answer? What are the important points that you should mention in your answer? What are the irrelevant points that you should skip? Because there is a well-defined area within which you have to complete your answer. You have to focus on the word limit as well. You have to focus on the time limit as well. So for that, answer writing is the key. And to ace this examination, for that you need a strong answer writing skills, which will only come up when you have a better understanding of the newspaper, when you're reading newspapers on a regular basis. So read newspaper, watch our analysis, don't make notes because you would not know when to start, what sort of notes to make, how deep to dig in a particular topic. We are doing that research for you. We are doing the heavy lifting for you. We're making your job easier. Take those notes, take a printout, as Mukesh sir said, have separate files. One file for polity, one notebook for polity, economics, environment, science and technology, international relations, disaster management. And then when you are revising your subject, polity, revise from Lakshmikant, revise from your notes, as well as this notebook, which has all the current affairs of the past year, then nothing is impossible for you. We've got another question now. How do I balance optional subject, or how to improve answer writing, ethics, sociology, optional strategy, and when to start for 2024? Ayush is asking this question. How do I improve answer writing session, Mukesh sir?
So when we talk about answer writing, it is a mere implication and reflection of our content that we know. What is it that we have extracted from all the areas that we have studied? So here, in the case of the answer writing, what is always rewarded and awarded in the case of mains is how concise we are, how relatable to the topic we are, and how are we able to authenticate the answers. Now we have to keep in mind that in the case of answer writing, nobody is perfect from day one. Practice is the key to success here. So when we talk about answer writing practice, that is again another area of concern, that when should I begin the practice? Should I start answer writing from day one? Or should I wait for some time to be able to complete all the GS portions and then to initiate the answer writing? So here I think the approach should be as soon as some chunk of your GS portion is completed. Let's say you have finished one particular chapter. I'll take the example of the subject of geography. Let's suppose you have finished the chapter regarding Earth's interior, plate tectonics, etc. Now ideally I would suggest that immediately after completing the chapter, you have to take a look at the previous year questions. That what are the various previous year questions which have been asked from that area. And thereafter, you have to judge yourself whether you will be able to answer that or not. So if you are able to answer that, then presentation, that matters. Now, for example, as much as you represent flowcharts, diagrams, etc., that is something which makes your answer less boring. Please understand, you have to incentivize the evaluator to be hooked onto your paper, to be hooked onto your answer copy. Because the evaluator has got the tough task in front of him or her to be able to evaluate the 4,000 words that you will write in the mains exam. So answer writing practice when you initiate, you have to work upon how to make our introduction very representative. So how to make our introduction concise, that is in around 30-35 words, am I able to introduce and give an idea to the evaluator that what the answer is going to contain. If I'm concluding the answer, it should always have a kind of a positive connotation or a kind of an optimistic tone. You should always inculcate that tone while you are writing the answer. And always, again, the examples from as many different topics that you can give. It does not mean that if you have, let's say, a question which has been asked in GS paper 3, does not mean the answer has to include only the perspectives that you have studied there. There might be a historical perspective involved there. There might be a recent sociological development which has happened there. We have to be able to interrelate and interlink the topics. That is what makes the answer much more representative, and I think that is something which will give us much more benefit in the long run as well.
Sir, should the answer be in point format or in paragraph?
As far as I'm concerned, whenever you write a mains answer, it depends on the kind of question that has been asked. For example, in economics, there is a question on, let's say, critical evaluation. I would recommend, let's say, go by point wise. But if there is a question on, let's say, describe, discuss, etc., of this kind of a nature, then you can adopt a paragraph approach. So as far as I'm concerned, it depends on the kind of question that has been asked. There is no universal formula whether you should always go for a point wise or you should go for a paragraph kind of an answer writing.
Lots of questions on how do I choose an optional subject? What is the approach that I should follow to select an optional subject? For example, we have a question on how do I select an optional subject? What are the key things that you have to keep in mind while deciding upon an optional? Optional is a very important subject.
Yes.
500 marks. And it's like the most important subject which will tell you whether you are clearing this exam, and that too with a good rank.
Yeah, it's a make or break.
Make or break decision.
Yes.
And I was talking to a student recently. He or she said that I want to change my optional subject after 2 attempts. Why? Because that optional subject was not letting him or her clear this examination. So should I take an optional subject keeping in mind that it is going to help me in my GS preparation? Or should I take an optional where I'm interested in? Or should I take a literature-based subject? What is the approach that I should follow to select an optional?
I think if you ask me, there are many factors which play a role here. Like you said, optional is a make or break decision for you. So when you're choosing an optional, you have to be very judicious. Like sir was giving an example where students go with an optional for 1 or 2 attempts. They see that it's not working for them, and midway they try to change the optional subject. So that is a situation you don't want to put yourself in. So before you select your optional subject, you have to put in a little bit of homework. You have to put in that effort to carry out a small exercise to determine which subject is best suited for you. And how do you go about this? First, take a look at the UPSC notification. There are more than 20 optional subjects that are given. There you can try to go through the syllabus. Take a look at the detailed syllabus given by UPSC for the different optionals. And once you are at least aware, and at least you have a basic awareness of the syllabus for the different optional subjects, then think about few factors.
I have absolutely no idea about these subjects. How do I choose?
Let's say I'm from an engineering background. I would consider one of the
Majority
engineering
of the
subjects.
civil services aspirants have engineering background.
And other than that, maybe I would think about literature, maybe depending on my personal preferences. Let's say I'm someone who's into reading a lot of novels in my particular language. So I might have a preference for a literature subject. Or let's say I'm someone who has an interest in political science or in international relations. So I would be inclined towards shortlisting at least 3 or 4 subjects.
So first thing to keep in mind, take a look at the syllabus of this examination, and you will find out an optional subject or a list of subjects where you're interested in.
Yes.
But is interest alone a determining factor to select an optional?
Definitely not. Definitely not. This is just the starting point. Then, once you at least shortlist a few subjects, then take a look at whether enough material is available, enough coaching or enough sources are available to prepare for the subject. That's one of the factors. Other than that, look at the scoreability of the option. UPSC provides the data on our website. Let's say if you visit our website, we have optional preparation strategies listed out. We have listed out the success ratios as well on our website. So this also plays a role. There are few optionals which are relatively easier for some students, but some students find few other optional subjects to be a little easier.
So if I can summarize, interest is one factor I have to keep in mind while deciding upon an optional, but interest alone will not help.
Correct.
Second would be, is the syllabus short?
Short.
So that I am able to complete the syllabus in, let's say, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months of time.
Right.
Is the coaching available? Because for optional, you would definitely need some external help.
Yes.
And then whether this optional subject is scoring as well.
Scoring as well, the success ratio as well.
Keeping these 3 criteria in mind, which is the optional that you would suggest?
I would be a little biased here since I teach international relations. I do have a preference for PSIR, for political science and international relations. It's not just because of a bias towards international relations, also the data suggests PSIR as an optional has done pretty well. Out of around 14,000, 15,000 students who sit for mains, around 1,200 to 1,300 students have chosen
But
political
now
science.
anthropology is also doing well. And there was a time when geography was doing well. There was a time when public administration was doing
So
well.
I think
now
this
we
is where-
don't recommend people take up, geography or public administration.
I think this is where it becomes very subjective. So every individual has to sit down, think for themselves, think on these lines, keep these factors in mind, and then take a call which is the best option.
If I can come in here.
Yes, please.
I would always say that while interest has to be the predetermining factor, it has to be very, very important. Then the second preference should be given, or the second weightage should be given to the factor of scoreability. What is the score that in general the trend is following? Now here, many of them, they choose an optional just because they are able to complete that optional maybe in 3 to 4 months. But if the score that UPSC is allocating right now, if that is below average, first of all, there is no scaling which is done in the optional. That is a big misconception that UPSC goes for scaling in the case of optional. It does not do that. So here, even if, let's say, I have to study an optional for 1 more month, but if studying an optional for 1 or more month or maybe 45 days extra, if it ensures that in the mains examination I'm going to, or being able to create a difference of around 25 to 30 marks, I think that should always take a preference.
Should I also keep in mind whether the subject is going to help me in my GS preparation as well, and then accordingly decide that this is the optional for me?
While I would suggest that almost all the subjects other than the science-based subjects and the literature subjects, any of the subjects that you choose, be it sociology, history, geography, PSIR, anthropology, all of them, they will help in general studies in some way or the other. But that should not be an overwhelming factor here. We have to ensure that we perform absolutely to our level best in those 500 marks, the paper which is going to appear in front of us. Now, at that point of time, we don't have to weigh in or consider that how many people are selecting the optional, what is going to be the future for that optional, because as we have already discussed, that various optionals, they have risen up to a crescendo, and then there is a very sharp trough which follows that. PSIR, geography, etc. Everything is an example in that. But then here, the trend tends to follow a kind of an average path here. So always the scoreability has to predominate, and our own abilities as well. If, for example, I'm good in writing skills, then in that case, an optional like sociology, an optional like a literature subject, that is going to be very, very rewarding. For example, let's say, I'm not so very good in my writing skills, but I'm good in analyzing any particular issue. I'm able to do a perfect SWOT analysis for any issue. Then optional subjects such as anthropology, optional subjects such as geography, or science-based optional subjects depending upon our background, that can also be a preferred choice. And here at the end of the day, you have to understand that every optional will have paper 1, paper 2, and it is your individual ability to apply yourself and the things that you have studied in general studies, how you are able to put that in paper 2. That is something which is mostly rewarding in all the optional subjects that we have talked about, other than the literature subjects.
So just to have an inquiry here, should the background play any role in choosing the subject?
I would say only if we are very, very proficient in our background or maybe graduation. Just because we have maybe completed a degree in, let's say, sociology or engineering background or
So
maths
are you
background.
basically saying I am from law background, if I do not choose law as my optional subject, the UPSC panel is going to question me, why did you not choose your graduation subject? That's what you're saying?
Yes.
Will that play a role?
I don't think so that will be playing much of a major role, because at the end of the day, the panel is not there to have a kind of a investigative analysis done. You have endless examples of people who are from varied backgrounds. See, if UPSC would have kept that as a parameter for selection, it would have mentioned it in the notification itself. But here, when UPSC talks about these various different optional subjects, it is the matter of how good you are able to perform. So if your background whatever you have completed in your maybe graduation or post-graduation level, if you are proficient in that, only then choose that optional.
And why can't you be honest in front of the interview panel and tell them that I have a law background, but I've taken up political science as my optional subject because at the end of the day, I want to clear this examination, and law optional as a subject is not scoring enough. So my principal objective is to clear this examination. I already am well versed with law, and now I want to clear this examination. For that, I have to take a look at the different subject. So long story short, again, if you have to take a look at these various optional subjects that UPSC offers, keep in mind your interest, because unless and until you're interested in a subject, you won't devote 2 hours on a daily basis for this subject, which means you have to be interested in a particular subject. But interest alone will not help. It should be scoring as well. It should have short syllabus as well, which you can cover in 3 to 4 months. There should be test series available for that subject. Lots of material available, freely available in the market as well, because there are some very good optional subjects, but the number of test takers are very less. That's why you don't see the quality of, let's say, the questions or test series or material available in the market. And you have to understand yourself first. Am I good with rote learning, or am I good with conceptual clarity? So I cannot take out a list and tell you this is the best optional subject for you. I can give you a guidance. Let's say if you're good in a literature subject, please opt for it. Literature subject is the best scoring subject currently under the UPSC. But that doesn't mean after this session is over, you will take up Tamil literature as your optional subject, but you're from Punjab. It's a recipe for disaster. But we can only give you a guideline. Interest, scoreability, short syllabus. It should have the material freely available in the market, or as we say, the coaching should be available in the market, so that you don't have to waste your time. I'm specifically using the term waste your time because this is a competitive examination, my dear. You're not here to score well. You're here to score better than others. So you have to kill your competition. And for that, you should be able to complete maximum portion of your syllabus in the lesser amount of time. For that, there should be ready-made content available so that you don't have to read multiple books. You can take out a gist, revise it, and practice answer writing on a regular basis. And if you're liking this initiative, this interaction that we are having right now, why don't you press the like button, drop in your comments, and we're here till 9:30 to answer all your questions. I think this question is specifically for you, Shyam sir. Strategy for economics optional.
Okay, this is a very often asked question to me by my students. Sir, should we choose economics as an optional paper? Because they might have read the topper has chosen economics. Somebody has written somewhere that, okay, economics is limited syllabus. You can easily score very good number of marks. Economics as an optional paper, yes, of course, you can take it up. But here are certain very important pointers. The reason that I asked a question regarding the background is very simple here. If your background is not economics, this is my sincere advice to you, please do not choose economics as an optional. This is unlike, let's say, literature, unlike, let's say, any other subject, not to put down other papers. But if you want to write economics optionals, you should have the background, or you better have a background in economics. Because when you talk about a subject, economics or let's say mathematics, if you are taking arts as let's say a subject in a post-graduation or in the graduation, the reason you have chosen arts because you are afraid of mathematics. There are many students like this. So when you already are afraid of a subject, and economics, especially optional paper, it's very technical, especially paper 1. Because I'm pretty sure all of you know by now, every optional paper has 2, or every optional subject has 2 papers. If you look at the optional paper 1, economics, it's very, very technical, lot of concepts, lot of background knowledge is required. Now some of you might simply say, sir, I will slug it out, I'll basically start reading from basics. Because you have read the GS paper 3, now you feel economics is very interesting, you can easily master economics, etc., etc. So here is my sincere advice. If your background is not economics and you do not want to take a lot of pain to prepare for optional paper, please skip economics. Now coming to strategy, assuming you have a background or you are ready to basically write it out. There are 2 papers, paper 1, paper 2. In paper 2, it is basically an extension of GS paper 3. If you're very good with GS paper 3, then basically expand the coverage. You can easily cover optional paper 2. What about paper 1? Paper 1, lot of concepts are there, theories are there, multiple books are required. And mind you, there are no generally the test papers which are available for economics optional. You will have to do a lot of self-studies. And one single source of reference is not available. Please do not search for it. Topper's notes, yes, you can use it, but that should not be the only source for you. You will have to use multiple books. For example, paper 1, there is a book by Dominic Salvatore on international business. There is a book by Ahuja on microeconomics, macroeconomics, Dattan Sundaram for paper 2. So you'll have to use multiple references. So last 5 years question papers plus current affairs, economic survey, budget, multiple references. That would be my 5 key strategy for economics as an optional paper.
Basically, you're scaring them.
Yeah.
Guiding them as to not
It's not about getting scared or etc. Because I've seen this particular question raised by many students. They look at only GS paper 3, they read newspapers, they can understand newspapers, they come to a conclusion that they can write economics as an optional. Not necessary. Again, I repeat, not necessary. Why? GS paper 3 is basically a subset of second paper in economics optional. So if you're finding that itself difficult, skip it. Choose another optional paper as per your liking, as per the scoreability, as we have discussed earlier.
Are you the only teacher who is recommending students not to take my subject?
Because many of the students, like we have discussed earlier, many of the students feel...
Which is great, considering that you don't want to misguide your students.
Yeah, many students looking at GS paper 3 decide that they want to take economics as optional.
Unlike Chethan sir, who says take PSI as your optional subject. There is a question, what should be the strategy for geography optional?
Well, for geography optional, there is no such exclusivity which is required. As you would know, one of the largest number of candidates appearing for the examination, they do choose geography optional. Now, first thing that I would say is, first of all, go through the notification. And there the syllabus is mentioned in significant detail. Not only the major topics, the subtopics as well. You have to internalize it, that what is required for each and every subtopic. You should have your own preparation or your own notes for each of these subtopics. Now, how do you go about it? So first of all, you would be required to study geography even for your general studies. Now that is a portion which should be absolutely crystal clear. The conceptual clarity when it comes to physical geography, there you can't compromise. Because UPSC will twist the question where the answer will be very simple, but the crux will be to be able to understand the requirement of the question. So you cannot compromise with the concepts in physical geography. Now, after that, you have to study few more areas in the case of the portion of physical geography for the optional. There you can take the help of few books. For example, Stroller is one such book which significantly improves your perspective, visualization of the portions of physical geography. After that, when we come to the other areas, for example, Indian geography. If you look at the trend for the past 10 years, Indian geography is largely determined and driven by the actions which are happening in our lives around ourselves. That is the portion of current affairs. So wherever you are living, for example, for instance, a simple case, wherever you are living, in whichever part of the country, you would have experienced certain problems in the urban area or in the rural region. You will find such questions are asked. Now there you don't need a particular book to tell you what are the issues, etc., which have to be written. Your current affairs will drive the marks. Now, regarding those areas which you require or which you are required to study separately, for example, models in human geography, perspectives in geography, that is something you can choose to finish at the end when you have cemented the portion of physical and the portion of Indian geography. But regardless of what come may, current affairs is very, very vital. That includes the newspapers and a couple of magazines. Magazines such as Down to Earth and Geography and You. These are the magazines which will update you on a regular basis, and it will also help you enhance your ability to provide various angles when you are writing an answer. It doesn't let your answer be unidirectional or monotonous. And that is something which will always help you score very close to 300, if not more than that. And that is where it is very, very rewarding.
Okay, sir, I had a question here. Do NCRTs play a role in geography optional? Is it required to go through NCRTs?
NCRTs, well, they are very important to lay the base which is required, the basic fundamental that will be created by the NCRTs. But once you have done that, once you have completed that, then after that, stick to the syllabus mentioned in the notification, choose one topic at a time, and thereby go and elevate your conceptual level from various books, maybe Savendra Singh, maybe Stroller, whichever book you are comfortable with, whichever covers the syllabus, and always analyze your progress with the help of the previous year questions. In any optional, as you will observe, there is a kind of a tendency that questions, at least the trends and the themes of the questions, particularly in paper 1, they are sometimes repeated. So that is something we cannot ignore. At least the previous 10 years questions for geography optional, if you look at it, you will find many areas. For example, plate tectonics, for example, ocean currents, for example, climatic classification. They have been repeated multiple times. So it provides you with a kind of a low-hanging fruit. But yes, as far as the NCRT is concerned, it is equally important to lay that base. But once you have laid that base, for the construction of the entire building, you need to procure some other materials, as they say.
Also, Sarwat sir,
And what is the significance? Sorry to interrupt.
sorry.
You were saying something.
I was just going through the live chat box. I see that there are a lot of aspirants for 2023 attempt, and they want to know how to prioritize which subject. They're just starting out, they have 5 months left. So a lot of people are asking, how do I prioritize and which subject should I prioritize?
There's a fire already. You don't have to prioritize. You have to complete everything. So what do you prioritize? But we'll take that question, but specifically with regards to NCRTs. How significant are NCRTs for GS?
Absolutely important. One cannot ignore the NCRTs. And NCRTs here, they are slightly different from the other reference books, because in NCRT, not only will they lay the base, but each and every sentence that you find in NCRT, many of the times they tell you a lot more than you can think about. The conceptual clarity which the NCRTs give you, and the direct questions which have been asked from NCRTs, if you just analyze them, it is humongous. At least for the subject of geography, and maybe Shyam sir would vouch for that, even for economy, for polity as well. NCRTs are the books which UPSC generally tends to prefer. And that is where we cannot afford to lose track of NCRT.
So if somebody is a beginner, is just starting out his or her preparation, so we would recommend start with basics, the NCRTs.
Absolutely.
Once NCRT books are done, then take a look at the reference books, for example, different books for different subjects, and then at the same time link it with current affairs. Then everything is sorted.
Maybe before that, after you have done the NCRTs, analyze the previous year questions once. There we get an ability and an idea that how much more do we have to delve deeper into a certain area, or is this much information more than enough? And that will help us prioritize which reference book do we go to. Or in certain cases, for example, for GS portion of geography, for GS portion of history, in many of the cases, we don't need another reference book. That doesn't help. So it is always advisable to limit the number of NCRTs and the number of reference books. So thereby, the NCRTs will suffice in many of the subjects.
Often recommended NCRTs from class 6 to 12th.
Ideally, I would suggest that students should pick up the NCRTs from 11th to 12th. But if they are finding slightest of difficulty in understanding that, they should not let their pride come in the way. They should straight away pick up class 6 level NCRTs and start studying from class 6 to 10th and then 11th and 12th.
For all the subjects, sir? Or
No, not necessarily, sir. From some subjects, it will vary. For example, in economics, what I would recommend is 11th and 12th should be more than sufficient, but specifically within 12th, please do not read microeconomics. Many of the students will start with microeconomics book, and by the time they reach 5th or 6th page, they will decide, let me drop economics altogether. So for all the subjects, you don't have to read from 6th to 12th. From one subject.
students are already scared of economics. You're scaring them more.
No, many students ask me, sir, my economics is very, very weak. I'm reading it for the first time. For those kind of students, what I would simply recommend is start with 9th class. 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th. And within 12th, only macroeconomics, not microeconomics. So the formula is very simple. There is no standard rule. 6th to 12th, no standard rule. From one subject to another subject, it will vary. Find out which is the current or which is the most required book within NCRT and read only those particular books or those chapters within those books.
Okay. So NCERT's foundational block, if you have to construct, as Mukesh sir said, a building where you're acing the civil services examination. We have an app, the BYJU'S Exam Prep app, where there are lots of initiatives, including the discussion of various important chapters from NCERTs. Let's take a look at some of the initiatives that we have on the BYJU'S Exam Prep app, which will help you excel the civil services examination. And if you're liking that content, download the BYJU'S Exam Prep app and give wings to your civil services preparation. Let's take a look at some of the initiatives on our app. And once again, welcome back. And if you're liking this initiative, there's a like button. Let's see what you can do with that like button. Can you press it once and let us know what exactly happens? Should there be a plan B? I'm preparing for this exam. I'm also studying at a college or a university, or I'm a working professional. Can I manage both at the same time?
We have seen many students who have been working and they've successfully cleared the exam as well. So I don't see why not. But of course, it takes a lot of commitment. It takes a lot of dedication as well to balance your work along with your studies. So you will have to dedicate a good 3 to 4 hours at least if you're a working professional to ensure that you cover not just current affairs, but also your GS syllabus and the optional subject as well. So striking that balance is what is really important. If you plan accordingly, if you have a year-long plan and ensure that you dedicate your weekdays for, let's say, current affairs and general studies, and on the weekends you pick up your optional subject with general studies. So if you chart out a plan on a monthly basis and a year-long plan.
So basically create a timetable, stick to it, and ensure that you're completing the syllabus, and then there is no reason why you can't clear it.
Yes, exactly.
So you have to prepare a timetable for the entire year.
Yes.
Which they will not follow later on. So what do they do?
So you should have...
But basically you're saying it is not impossible to manage both your studies and civil services preparation, or your job and your civil services preparation at the same time.
Yes.
It's doable. People have done that in the past. So can you. But should I have a plan B?
I think first of all...
When do I decide that I should quit my job and prepare for this exam full time?
Yeah, that is a very tough call to take, when to quit the job.
But who will take that call?
It should be taken by oneself.
Or based on your advice?
Not at all. If you are not absolutely convinced that this is the way to go, then take some time.
But nobody is convinced. I mean, you ask a topper, were you sure that you would be rank 1 in the civil services examination? He or she would say, I was not even contemplating that, I was not even thinking that I would be in the list, let alone be at rank 1.
So in that case, I would say that one should not work like the Planning Commission did 5-year plans. We should not have 5-year plans for clearing civil services examination. We should set ourselves a kind of a deadline that I'll see what I can do in the first attempt, or at max in 2 attempts.
UPSC is a swamp.
That is where
you don't come out of it.
That is where self-awareness has to be there, and that is where one has to realize that at which level mistakes are being committed. So in the initial days of your preparation, when you are, let's say, following a plan that I have to somehow clear this exam in 1 attempt, as soon as you give yourself the luxury that I have 6 attempts, that brings in enough scope for procrastination, and that gives in enough scope for plan B, plan C, plan D, plan E, that if not this, I have other options. But if you think and if you set your mindset that I have only 2 options or 2 attempts which are available for me, then the effort should be slightly more. And after those 2 attempts are extinguished, start thinking about plan B, while simultaneously, if your interest still pursues you in this direction, I think there is nothing wrong in
I
balancing.
tell my students, only you can take a call whether you need a plan B or not. For example, if you're somebody and if you have a plan B, it will make failure acceptable. For example, I don't clear UPSC, so what? I'll clear a State Public Service Commission exam. I don't clear that as well, I will clear an SSC exam. I don't even clear that, I will clear an IBPS exam or an RBI exam. And at the end of the day, I don't clear any exam. So if you're somebody like that, then you don't need a plan B. You have a plan B, it's an incentive for your failure. But there are others who will feel demotivated if they lose their job, if they quit their job, and then their preparation is not along the right line. They will all the time keep on thinking about what am I going to do with my life? Where am I headed towards? I don't have a job. I am absolutely uncertain about what the direction I'm taking. I don't know whether I will clear this exam or not. So then the depression creeps in. And ultimately, you're lost.
That is where this examination is so unique in a sense, where in this examination, the motivation is the biggest driver ever. I don't think there is any other competitive examination at this level which offers you a job to be able to create a difference at such a level, to be able to not only change your life, the lives of your family members, the life of the entire society that you belong from. So here, as soon as that risk or that danger of maybe quitting the job, that dawns upon you, the motivation factor should pick up. And that is where the motivation should be, and that is where self-motivated individuals who are not motivated by, let's say, once the results are declared, at that point of time you will also find, and everybody will vouch for it. As soon as the results are declared, almost everybody is interested in preparation for civil services because of the huge media glare that follows them. But immediately after a month, that fizzles out. So here, self-motivation is going to be the driver. And if we don't have that, then I think even plan Z, if we have, that won't help us. Otherwise, we are simply compromising with the time, and very precious time.
Shyam sir, do you see that these are the critical criteria that a student or characteristic that a student should have? And if you possess these qualities or criteria, you will definitely clear this exam. What are the key criteria or characteristics that a student should have?
One is the clarity of thought. What am I preparing this exam for? What is my ultimate goal? Second one is self-motivation. To the extent, to what extent you can self-motivate yourself, because as again and again we are reiterating this point. In this particular preparation, there is a year-long preparation. There will be a certain time period, or let's say there will be a certain day when you will feel like giving up. There will be a day where you are feeling, right, you are going to win this exam over, etc. So to what extent you can prepare by, or let's say you can motivate yourself. It's not like a New Year resolution, right? On 1st of January we decide, and 2nd of January or 3rd of January we have already forgotten it. Like we have done, most of us have done right now. So self-motivation, clarity of thought, and the third, right, to what extent you are going to prepare this exam, in the sense, to what extent you are going to put in your hard work.
So preparing for this exam 24 hours on a daily basis?
Not necessarily. 24 hours, not at all required. Because
not possible either.
Maybe only first day. Right, on the first day you will spend 24 hours, second day you will be admitted in the hospital. So third day you will decide UPSC is not for me, I'll choose something else. Right, so 24 hours not required, right? Maybe 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours. And again, there is no universal formula.
And it depends upon the quality of time that you put in rather than the quantity.
Yes.
So if I am at my study desk, but I'm reading Lakshmikant, for example, but I'm already at Mussoorie, basically I'm not studying anything. So the quality of time matters rather than the quantity.
And also, more than the time that we dedicate in front of the books, maybe as both of you have said that 5-6 hours of quality time will suffice, it is important to be involved in this. And when I say
like it, love it.
Yes.
I mean, the beauty about this exam, you get to study about everything. The politics, the economy, the geography, the society, international relations. You become an aware citizen. And an aware citizen becomes a responsible citizen. And that's the brilliant quality that a civil servant should have. So enjoy, be invested in this process, love this process. This is one of the best exams that you can give.
And every day comes with a new lesson. Maybe we step out of the house. I will give you the example of geography, obviously. Maybe we step out of the house, we see cloudy sky, but there is no rain. We have to be thoughtful about it, that why this phenomena is happening. If we are curious enough, for example, even let's say any political action has happened, a Supreme Court judgment has happened. That is not mentioned in my static book. Maybe that will come in the current affairs tomorrow. But am I curious enough to invest in that today? Am I curious enough to investigate about that?
And win an argument with an irritating uncle in your neighborhood. Which
Maybe.
political party
That
is
is
best?
the biggest, in a kind of attraction in the initial days, that I have to win
What's up
all
with
the
those
arguments. In the initial days, that is the biggest driver.
Can EVMs be hacked? Now you have a solid argument. EVMs cannot be hacked. They're not connected to the internet, which means they don't have a transmitter, they don't have a receiver. It's just like a calculator. Have you ever heard that a calculator has been hacked?
No. Exactly.
I think the self-awareness that you gain with this exam, with the preparation process itself, should become a driving factor for your preparation.
So you were demotivating them, don't take economics as an optional. Now we are motivating them to take the civil services examination.
You can become an IAS officer even without choosing economics optional. That's what I'm trying to tell you people.
But can you become an IAS officer without understanding economics, which is very important for GS?
No, that would become very, very difficult. Very difficult. That's the reason I said, if you can understand GS paper 3 and you don't want to have a very high burden of reading economics, technical subject, then stick with any other optional except economics.
There are subjects which are exclusively for the mains examination. Subjects such as world history, subjects such as ethics, integrity, and aptitude. When do we plan preparing for these subjects? After the prelims exam or before the prelims exam?
If you ask me, the window between prelims and mains is pretty short, hardly around 4.5 months. So I honestly feel preparation for your mains should have started a good 8 or 10 months or 12 months before even your prelims. So considering that you still have a good 1 year to go for the mains examination, you have to put in that effort to cover some of the main subjects. Of course, you'll start out with the big subjects, the core subjects, but even the smaller subjects, let's say internal security, let's say governance or disaster management. These subjects, the beauty of these subjects is that the syllabus is very short, very precise, and many times the questions are very straightforward. For example, if you look at internal security, you get guaranteed 4 questions in GS paper 3. And some of these smaller subjects, they are multidisciplinary. They are connected with the other bigger subjects. So whatever you read in these smaller subjects, they do help you in the other subjects as well. So there is actually a valid point to cover the smaller subjects way before you start just your prelims preparation. So let's say in the month of May, you have your prelims. You would have started preparing the previous year. So from the last May to, let's say, December or January, you have those 6 to 7 month window. That is where you can fit in the smaller subjects, try to cover that. Plus, most of the smaller subjects are driven heavily by current affairs. So as and when you're covering current affairs, much of the syllabus of these smaller subjects also get covered. So I think ideally you should wrap up these subjects, and after prelims, you have to revise them again, practice answer writing. I think then you're good to go.
And what I recommend, I tell students, complete your entire syllabus before the prelims exam. The period after the prelims exam should be focused on revision, covering current affairs, practicing mocks, as many answer writing sessions as possible, focus on your optional, that's it. You don't have to study something new after your prelims exam.
Yeah.
So all these subjects, whether relevant for prelims or mains, should be completed before the prelims exam.
In fact, many aspirants make this mistake of treating prelims and mains in silos.
Yes.
They can't be.
It can't be. You can't draw a boundary between prelims and mains. So it has to be a holistic preparation.
Ideally, the portion of the mains, everything in the mains portion should be completed before, let's say, we have the prelims in May. We should be able to complete the answer writing, revision of everything required for the mains by the month of January end at max. And after that, as many of the questions are coming, that when should we entirely focus on prelims or when should we completely shift our focus on prelims, that should have at least, you should have at least 2 to 3 months. The students oftentimes, they start picking up few of the novels as well. For example, Shashi Tharoor's Pax Indica.
Yes.
For example, you have Hello Buster. So all these, how important are these books, or should we go ahead with the preparation by ignoring these books, and that would also suffice based on current affairs?
For these 2 subjects you mentioned, sir, that is international relations and internal security, I don't recommend books for my students. In class as well, I clearly say that current affairs is the driving factor for these two subjects. Start with your current affairs. Of course, the static part, the basics are important. But when you prepare for current affairs over a long period of time, when you keep, let's say, we'll go back to the India-China example. Throughout the year, there will be multiple articles, multiple editorials covering not just the current happening issue, but also the background to it. So as and when you cover current affairs consistently over a period of time, even the background gets covered. If you, like the books you said, like Pax Indica, if you keep reading these books, yes, you can do it out of pure interest as a hobby, but you'd be wasting your time. This exam, I mean, we are here to crack this exam. It's a competitive exam. It's not about becoming a master in each of these subjects. So for these subjects, especially international relations and internal security, stick to the current sources. The background, of course, is needed, but you can get it from the editorials. And of course, there will be some extra reading on certain websites like Ministry of External Affairs, the websites of few international organizations. There are a few think tanks as well, which a student will have to follow. So there you will get all the relevant material. That is more than enough. You don't have to waste your time in reading a book, and especially books like Pax Indica or any novels, like you said, would be a complete waste of time.
So read Shashi Tharoor at Labasna, not for preparing this examination. So those students who have joined us now for the first time, what all have we covered today? We looked at very basic, what this exam is all about, what are the 3 stages of this examination. We looked at the importance and significance of current affairs and how can one master current affairs. We also looked at how can a student select an optional subject for the mains examination. We discussed strategies for various options such as economics, international relations, geography. We looked at what are the key criteria that a student has to keep in mind while deciding upon an optional. We looked at the significance of NCERT books, which help you lay foundation for this examination. And we discussed how can we prepare for prelims and mains. As Chethan sir said, these are not 2 different silos. You have to prepare for prelims and mains simultaneously at the same time. How? Let me give you an example. Prelims is about 2 things. UPSC will test you whether you have the factual understanding and conceptual clarity. So facts and concepts will be tested by UPSC when it comes to the prelims examination. And in mains examination, UPSC will shift its focus on 2 other areas, analysis and elaboration. Whether you can analyze whatever you have discussed, studied for your prelims exam, whether you can elaborate whatever you have discussed and studied for your prelims exam. Let's say, for example, the Office of Governor. This topic is relevant for your examination. Why? Because the governor's office is in controversy right now. Lots of newspaper articles regarding what the Kerala governor is doing or what West Bengal governor has been doing or what other governors have been doing. So basic facts related to governor. How is the governor appointed? Who appoints the governor? What are the qualifications required for somebody in order to be appointed as the governor of a state? Can the same person be appointed as governor of multiple states? How is the governor removed? What are the powers available with the governor? Then what is the relationship that a governor shares with the chief minister? There is something called discretionary power. There are some things that a governor can do without the aid and advice of the chief minister and the council of ministers. That is why we say the president wields influence, but the governor wields not just influence, he wields power. So that is why for the mains examination, the question can be, should the office of governor be abolished? The office of governor is the relic of colonial era and should be discarded. What are the arguments in favor of continuing with the position of the office of governor? What are the arguments against? So when all of this is important for your exam, you can't separate prelims from mains. Unless and until you have the conceptual clarity, you have the factual knowledge, you can't prepare for the mains examination. And that is why I say, prepare for your mains examination even before the prelims is over. And now, when can you exclusively devote your time and attention to the prelims exam? For that, it varies from people to people. I am a student preparing for this examination for the first time. I need some extra time to prepare for the prelims examination exclusively. Which means if the exam is on May 28, I need 3 months at least to prepare exclusively for the prelims examination. Revise the books multiple times. Get your conceptual clarity up front. Get the facts cleared as well. But if you're appearing for this examination for the 2nd, 3rd or 4th time, you have already cleared prelims exam multiple times, then you would ideally need 2 months before the prelims examination to completely focus on the prelims exam. And the key point that I'm trying to make here is there cannot be a single strategy to clear this examination. Please keep that in mind. More often than not, what students do, they read a particular blog of a topper and then they try to regurgitate whatever is mentioned in that blog and follow the same kind of strategy to excel in the civil services examination. Now listen to me carefully. I'll make a simple analogy, although a useless analogy. You have to travel from point A to point B. You can walk, you can cycle, you can take your own vehicle, you can book an Ola or an Uber if the driver does not cancel. You can take a helicopter as well. You can take a plane as well. You can take a bus as well. You can take a cramped bus of the government public sector undertaking as well. That doesn't mean any of this transport is useless. All these modes of transport will take you to the destination. But all you have to do is take that mode of transportation which is suitable for you and which is going to take you to your destination in the quickest possible time. Because assume this is a race. Unfortunately, it is a race. It is a race which you have to win and perform better than others. So take that mode of transportation which is going to help you reach your destination in a shortest possible time. And the crux of it, I'm telling you, join the BYJU'S classes. This was just humor.
If I can ask a couple of questions. Now, because
No.
you mentioned the portion of factual content and factual information. Now, for the subject of polity, many of the students, oftentimes they get overawed by the fact that do we need to learn the articles of the Constitution? And is there any role of that? So how important or unimportant it is when it comes to that factual data?
I tell my students, don't remember and memorize these article numbers. Why? Because the moment you tell them that you have to remember and memorize them, it's an additional burden on them. But they will automatically remember these important articles when they're revising the topics multiple times. So 5-6 readings, they would remember Article 14 deals with right to equality. Article 19(1)(a) deals with freedom of speech and expression. And please remember and memorize only those articles which are there in the newspaper, which appear frequently in the newspaper. Right to life, Article 21. Freedom of speech and expression. There was a judgment yesterday by the Supreme Court. Should there be additional curbs on a minister's freedom of speech and expression, other than already mentioned under Article 19, Clause 2 of the Constitution? But you don't have to waste your time and focus enough attention just to memorize these articles. Once you revise these topics multiple times, you will automatically recollect them. And it is important, it is good that you cite article numbers, it is good that you cite judgments while you're writing answers. Keshavananda Bharati judgment, Maneka Gandhi judgment, unless and until it is relevant for your exam. So there is a question on the office of the governor and you're saying and citing Maneka Gandhi judgment. It is impossible, it is useless, it won't fetch you good marks.
And the same question for Shyam sir as well, because in economics, you have so much of data. You have the core sector inflation, headline inflation, GDP for the quarter, GDP for the year, sectoral growth to GVA, everything that I can think about. How important is it to be able to ignore the data or to be able to focus on the data, and how to inculcate that in our answer writing?
Should you remember every data that you come across in economics? Answer is no. Then does it mean that should you ignore every data that comes in the newspaper? Of course, again, the answer is no. Then many of you will simply say, sir, you are basically contradicting yourself. Absolutely no. First and foremost, in UPSC preliminary examination, UPSC doesn't ask you any data. You can check any number of previous year question papers, you will realize this. But yes, sometimes there is certain data which is actually required for you in answering, let's say, trend-based questions, which are generally asked in UPSC preliminary examinations, or let's say even in answering certain questions on poverty, inequality, inclusive growth, etc. in the mains examination. So my recommendation would be that please don't by heart any data that is recurring in nature. Some of you will ask me, sir, what do you mean by recurring here? I'll give a very simple example, inflation. Do you think inflation data is published once every 10 years or once every 5 years or even once every year? Absolutely no. Every month, 12th or 13th of that particular month, in the newspaper, you will come across the data of CPI, right? That is retail inflation. So should you remember every month what is happening to retail inflation in the Indian economy? Absolutely no. By the time you go and write the exam, the last month's data will be outdated. So that's a reason, don't by heart every data that you come across. There are certain macroeconomic high frequency indicators such as, let's say, GDP growth trend, inflation trend, fiscal deficit trend, right? Let's say the poverty data, etc. So keep in mind only this limited amount of data that should be more than sufficient for you to answer any kind of these kind of questions, whether they are asked in prelims or even in the mains examination.
What is the importance of test series in clearing the civil services examination? Chethan sir.
With regard to this examination, practice is everything. Apart from your studies, apart from the effort you have already put in, taking practice tests is absolutely crucial. I can't stress how important it is, both for prelims and also for your mains. Or else, how will you generate a feedback regarding your preparedness? How will you know where there are gaps in your preparation? The test series is designed for that. Taking up regular practice tests, especially after covering a part of your syllabus. Of course, you can't take a test without covering the basic syllabus. Once you cover a basic part of your syllabus, let's say at least 50 to 60% of your syllabus, that is when you have to start focusing on your test series, especially when the exams are getting closer. Let's say prelims is in May. When you start your exclusive prelims preparation from at least February or March onwards, you really have to focus on your prelims test series for a good 4 to 5 months for your prelims. This will help you improve your preparation with regard to each module, each subject, and also to attempt the whole paper as well. It will test your conceptual clarity, it will identify your gaps in your preparation. So you get the feedback, you go back, revise those things where you went wrong. And second, it also teaches you the strategy that you should follow in the actual examination. A prelims test series or even a mains test series, it's as good as a simulated environment. It's an environment where you are simulating the actual examination conditions. So writing or answering a paper of 100 questions in 2 hours, of course, there is a lot of stress on you, there is pressure. You need to read the question correctly, mark the right option, right? So these are small tricks, small strategies that you start inculcating the more you practice. And the same goes for your mains as well. Answer writing is an art. It's a skill that develops over a period of time. And this is something you have to inculcate on a regular basis again. Once you cover a good part of your syllabus, take questions from what you're reading. Let's say you've read the newspaper today, you read a part of your GS syllabus, part of your optional. Take a couple of questions at the end of the day. Try to write a practice answer to that and ensure that you stick to the time limit and the word limit as well. So over a period of time, let's say over 2-3 months of regular answer writing, your answer writing skills will start improving. And then when you start taking the full length test papers, it will test your writing skills, it will give you that necessary feedback on how you're structuring your answer, whether the answer is logically structured, whether you have a flow of thought which is going, whether you're inculcating all the points, the data which is needed, and also how would you structure the answer, whether it's in bullet point format or in paragraph format. These are techniques that you pick up, you learn over a period of time, and this requires practice. So that is where the test series come in. They play an absolutely critical role.
Indispensable to crack this examination, test series. You may not like it, but you don't have an alternative. There is no alternative to taking as many mock tests as possible. You skip test series, you skip the chances of clearing this examination. I repeat, you skip test series, you're not going to clear this examination. But please listen to me carefully. There are students who are scared of even attempting an answer. I'll give you an analogy. When you started learning driving for the first time, and there was an instructor next to you, this is the steering wheel, this is the accelerator, this is the brake, this is the clutch, assuming it is not an automation car. You have lots of things to keep track of. This is the indicator, left, right, there is a policeman behind. You basically assume one fine day that I'm never going to drive a car. But 7 days, 10 days, 20 days later, you're zooming past on a highway, overtaking an irritating tipper as well. That's the art of learning. That's what you achieve by practicing. So test series is important. There is no alternative. You have to practice it. But sir, I'm unable to start. At least start. Write a horrible answer, but please write. Over a period of time, you will learn the art of putting a best answer, because answer writing is what is going to help you clear this examination. 1750 marks in mains exam. That determines your success. And that is entirely based on the marks, your answer writing skill. So answer writing skill is indispensable if you have to clear this examination. But then, for example, for prelims and mains, it also depends upon how you approach the test series. Simple terms, there is a question, an MCQ. Don't just pick the right answer and say, I have finished my question, I have picked up the right answer. Take a look at the 3 other options as well and understand why are those 3 options wrong. This way, you're covering one question, but you're covering 4 topics. You're covering one aspect, but you're covering 4 multiple dimensions. So if you're attempting 100 questions, you're basically covering 400 topics. That should be your approach. So even if you're attempting a prelims test series, the approach should be not just to look at the right answer or the appropriate answer, but to also look at other options which are incorrect. And then revise it multiple times. Take the same test again. For example, an approach. Should I first complete the entire subject, entire question paper, and then mark the options on the OMR sheet? It's a recipe for disaster because you will end up making mistakes. The moment you are sure that this is the right answer to this question, immediately mark it on the OMR sheet. Because then, let's say for example, there are 100 questions, but you can't answer all the 100 questions. For example, you have answered 70. For example, you have answered question number 1 to 5, but 6, 7, 8 you have skipped, and you have answered 9 and 10. In a hurry, if you are marking the options on the OMR sheet, you are marking it from 1 to 10. So basically 6 and 7 or 5th, 6th and 7th question which you have not attempted. You have attempted 9th and 10th. The answer to 9 and 10 you are mentioning as answer to question number 5 and 6. Then you are ruining the entire OMR sheet and the invigilator is not going to provide you with another OMR sheet. This basically means that your attempt is over. You have ruined your attempt. So this is the understanding that you get while attempting the test. How to approach the test. How to keep a track of the time, how do I structure my answer, and there are enough examples when the same kind of questions are asked in the mains examination as well, in the actual UPSC examination as well. So you're already prepared for this examination. Take as many tests as possible, the more the better, the more the merrier.
So just a point here. Is there any safe number of test series that you would recommend? Because the other day, I was looking at some of the interviews of the toppers, and many of the people, let's say some of the people stated that I attempted 10,000
Just to interrupt
papers.
you there, for the benefit of the students, you should look at these topper interviews and blogs with a pinch of salt. Whatever they're saying is not absolute truth. So there is something called, you have your truth, I have my truth. So far as the only truth and the ultimate truth is concerned, it does not exist. There's a topper I know who said, I've studied 16 hours a day. Ultimate lie. Another topper who said, I didn't study at all. I studied for 4 hours, that to write before the examination. I didn't study these multiple books. So there are 2 extremes. One who proclaimed that I've studied everything under the sun, that's how I have cleared this exam. Another extreme, I studied nothing. I was born genius. I was born to crack this examination. The truth is somewhere in the middle. So is there a specific number of tests that you should attempt? I would say no. The more, the better. When should I start preparing and writing an answer? If you've completed, let's say, 25% of polity, for example, then start writing. It can't be that I've started my preparation today and immediately next day I'll start writing answers, because you can't write an answer. It's an exercise of wastage. First, gather the information. Then you have to apply that information. So first, I would suggest 25 to 30% of the syllabus for a specific subject, complete it, and then start writing answers.
So any suggestion, let's say I attempted 5 tests or 10 tests, but in all the 10 tests that I've written, I've not scored, let's say, even 30 or 40 marks. Any suggestion in that particular case?
Look at your shortcomings. Why are you not scoring well? What is the issue? Let's say, there is a question. The first thing that you have to look at, understand, what is the demand of this question? Don't write unnecessary details. For example, biased in favor of polity, there is a question related to the office of governor. The office of governor is the relic of colonial era and should be abolished. critically analyze. You don't have to mention that there is a governor for every state, the appointment of governor done by the president, there is something called doctrine of pleasure, what are the qualifications, who is the governor of which state. Irrelevant details which is not going to fetch you any marks. Hit the nail on the head. What is the demand of the question? The office of governor should be abolished. Critically analyze. So you have to mention the argument in favor of continuing with the office of governor, arguments against continuance of the office of the governor, and then give a conclusion. Conclusion can be, we don't need to abolish this office of governor, but there are some reforms. Reforms such as mentioned by the Sarkaria Commission. Reforms such as mentioned by the Punchi Commission. Maybe some of the recommendations of the Interstate Council. So when you incorporate committee reports, current affairs, problem solved. So the point is that we tend to overcomplicate things when the things are not meant to be overcomplicated.
And oftentimes, if we analyze the mistakes, for example, in the prelims test series that candidates do, there also the performance oftentimes, even after 5 to 7 tests, it is not up to the mark. So they simply drop the test. So the problems or the mistakes that we commit can be basically bifurcated or trifurcated into 2 or 3 categories. Either there will be a lack of content, or there will be a lack of concentration. Many of the times we know the content, but maybe we are not able to apply ourselves. Accordingly, we should make a note of it, that when is it that I am absolutely lacking the concentration? Is it because I'm not able to sit in a concentrated manner for 2 hours? Is there some other issue? Maybe I'm overthinking on some other question and committing mistake in the other relevant question which I could have done correctly. So wherever there is a lacking in terms of content, we should go back to the basics, square one. That from the explanation portion, first of all, we should make ourselves familiar. If that is inadequate, we should go back to the books. And there we should have a meaningful improvement there done. So if, for example, one test series, only one test series if a candidate attempts, thereby, for example, I'll take the case of the prelims test series. For example, the candidate appears for 20 tests. Overall, that means close to around 2,000 questions which are there. Now, each of them having 4 options. So the source of information that you have and each of the errors that we have committed, ideally I would recommend the candidates who are not able to score particularly well, that wherever the content is lacking, or even in the questions that we have done it correctly, but still in the explanation, in the other option we found some new information, we should make a small note of it. And at the end of the test series, that small concise note, that will be such an important weapon in our arsenal, whereby it will do the due diligence when it comes to the prelims preparation, and also the mental conditioning by the time that we appear for the 20 tests. The mental conditioning when it comes to maybe focusing on the exam, concentrating to the level best, that is something which can be achieved.
And that's the power of analysis. You don't have to only take the test.
Yes.
Then you will have to analyze as well. So there are some questions which you are unable to answer. Why? Maybe you have not completed that portion. Maybe you read it, but you did not dig too deep into this. Or maybe you read this, but you were unable to recall. So you will then realize, okay, the problem is revision. Okay, the problem is not revision, the problem is I did not dig too deep into this topic. Or the problem is I was unable to complete the syllabus. That's the power of analysis when you appear in these tests. So for me, sacrosanct thing, take as many tests as possible. You skip the test series, you skip the chances of clearing this exam.
So when it comes to mains answer writing, many students find the directives to be very difficult, like critically evaluate, examine. So
just understand them once. For example, the students can be from a different coaching institute. Talk to your teacher and ask the teacher, so what do these terms mean? Comment, critically analyze, suggest, elaborate, and analyze. Once you're aware of what these directives basically mean, then you are able to make a correct answer.
But understanding the directives do play a very big role.
110%, yes. That's the whole point of a question. The question asks and demands from you to critically analyze this particular statement or justify it. So it depends on what sort of question is asked in the examination, and that's ultimately very important to understand.
Right.
To what extent the level of English in the mains exam required when it comes to speaking and writing? Speaking, absolutely not required. You can take the interview in your own mother tongue as well. So the level of English required in spoken English required, irrelevant. Writing, you don't have to use bombastic words. You don't have to write a novel which is going to win you a Booker Prize. Your answer, handwriting should be legible, no calligraphy. But if it is calligraphic, better. But your handwriting should be legible, point one. Second, you don't have to use difficult words. Convey to the examiner in simple terms what is the requirement of this question. This is not the test of your language, my dear. This is the test of your knowledge. This is the test of your understanding. Make it as simple for the examiner to understand your perspective. That's it.
So one need not be a Shashi Tharoor.
Shashi Tharoor won't qualify this exam. With no offense to him. Sir, any strategy to cover syllabus in under 1 year easily before prelims? The same strategy that we follow and we recommend every student. This exam can be easily qualified in your single attempt. And please consider that you have only one attempt to write this exam. The first attempt is the most beautiful attempt. This is when your energy level is at its optimum level. This is where you are 100% invested in this examination fever. Assume that you have got only one attempt. And I can guarantee you, you will do well in this exam. And the syllabus is such, it's not that UPSC is your irritating uncle or an enemy, that it will prescribe a syllabus which you can't complete in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. This is a syllabus designed for a year. And in 1 year, you can easily complete the syllabus. Sir, I'm in a dilemma because of CSAT. I'm very poor in math, so I have a fair, not of mains, but CSAT. Due to that, I haven't appeared for examination yet. What should I do? Kill the fair? If you're scared of mathematics, I would give you a simple solution. Skip maths. Focus on the other aspects. CSAT is qualifying in nature. All you need to do is score 66. If you are good in English comprehension, and if you're good in some other aspects of CSAT, not necessarily maths, you don't have to score 200 or 150 or 100. You have to score only 66. So even with skipping maths, you can score 66 and qualify for this examination. So don't be scared of this exam primarily because you're scared of mathematics. Let mathematics be scared of you. You're not reading it. How do we maintain the stress level during the exam preparation day? Sir, you are stress-free.
Practice. As much as possible, practice. For example, I've seen many students taking the test specifically at the timing 9:30 to 11:30 in the morning. The reason that they basically do this is to get the hang of what exactly they will be, and let's say the kind of a mindset, or let's say the physical attention from 9:30 to 11:30. So the more you practice, the more you get the hang of this particular examination, it should be very easy for you. But if your question is specifically, sir, day to day I'm getting a lot of stress, that could be because you're listening to many other people regarding the preparation strategy. The day you start preparing either for 2024, 2025, whatever year you is your target, have a clear-cut plan for that. You are going to cover these many subjects in this particular fashion. You are going to attempt these many test papers. You are going to read this newspaper, and you are going to make this much amount of notes. And this is the revision, right, that you will be doing every 7 days, every 14 days, or every 30 days if your, let's say, recalling capacity is very high. So have the plan, right, refer to the right number of sources, limited but right number of sources, right, revise and attempt the test. That should take care of any kind of a stress that you might be feeling. You come under stress because you don't have a plan. You come under stress because you are changing your plan very often. For example, many of the students who start preparing for this subject will talk to their friend. Their friend will say, this book is not required, other book is required. You will go to the market, purchase one more book. Another friend will say, have you not read Yojana? Yojana is very important. You will go to the market, purchase Yojana. Somebody will recommend Kurukshetra. Somebody will recommend Hindu newspaper, etc., etc., etc. At the end of the day, no doubt you will become the collector, but not the kind of collector that you want to become. Right? So please be very careful. Have limited sources, have a plan, have a clear-cut thought what you want to do. That should take care of the stress level that you're talking.
stress part depends on who you are. If you're a believer, whatever can go wrong will go wrong. So start believing in God. God will do something good for you. God has the best plan for you. And whatever He plans it the best way. If you're an atheist, if you're an agnostic, I will make my own destiny. You will not be under stress. Stress is state of mind. If you want the stress to get the better of you, the stress will have the upper hand. Instead, focus on the task in hand, complete the syllabus, problem solved. Take as many tests as possible, problem solved. Simplify the things, don't overcomplicate the things. There is stress in everybody's lives, so you can't take the stress out of it. But if you're a believer, believe in God, bribe Him, He is going to give you a solid position in the civil services examination. You want to come in there?
Well, I'm not a believer, so faith may play a role or may not play a role, but faith in yourself, conviction in yourself will definitely play a bigger role.
Which means you're a believer.
In this, I think the importance should also be paid on target setting and goal setting. One should have a short-term target and a long-term target. Short-term target in the sense, what do I intend to achieve in the next 15 to 20 days? What is the portion that I'm trying to cover? So that will assuage some of the stress, and the long-term goal that by these many months, I'll be done with these many subjects or my mains preparation. So as long as you're sticking to it and as long as it is realistic, it has to be very realistic. It should not be that I will chill out for the first 10 days and in the next 10 days, I'll complete the entire syllabus.
And stress can also be, I have a timetable, but I do not stick to this timetable. I could not complete the target for today. Now I'm under a lot of stress. This will be the phase in everybody's preparation time.
Exactly.
So if you're unable to study on a given day, leave it.
Yes. And
log on
also,
to Netflix.
That also comes
What
with
is the series that you will recommend?
Well, recently I watched Khaki based upon the book, and it's I wouldn't recommend it.
Chethan sir?
There is a show called Tehran on
You can't recommend Netflix to your students. Alchemy of Souls. I'm not asking you
Not
to
recommended, sir. I watched recently the whole set of Narcos, so I would not recommend that to anyone.
Just to make it a little interesting, can we have a rapid fire? A quick rapid fire. I'll ask 3 questions to all of you. One word answer.
Okay.
Shyam sir, the biggest myth about this exam.
It is very difficult.
Sarmad sir, the biggest mistake a student can make.
Not having belief in himself or herself.
Mukesh sir, the biggest favor an aspirant can do for themselves.
Again, believe in themselves and do the same thing again and again and again and again for the entire process. There is no such secret key. Just be repetitive and disciplined. Discipline and perseverance, that is something which will take you to the goal.
So when you said do it again and again, I hope you did not mean
The
repetition.
multiple iterations, no.
This year, next
within,
year.
within the same attempt, I meant.
The rapid fire is over.
Yes. 3 questions. Good, think of 3 questions.
Okay. In the remaining 5 months, which subjects we have to prioritize and how much time we will have to give to these subjects? The Rahul saying. Mukesh sir.
That is totally subjective depending upon what level of preparation we are in. We cannot simply say that this particular subject, if you ignore, then you will be better off, or if you overstress on this subject, because UPSC pays equal attention to all the subjects. Almost from all the subjects you have almost...
Not true.
In your subject maybe, but then overall...
But there are some subjects which you can recommend easily. Polity, geography, economics, modern history.
Modern history.
Necessarily you'll have to cover.
Yes.
And the remaining part, if you can only focus on current affairs, high chances of yours clearing this exam.
Revision of current affairs.
Revision of current,
yes.
exactly.
Yes, not the mere coverage, because that is again one of the mistakes that the students do. They will cover the current affairs for the past 18 months, but they would not have revised it even once. So by the time that you go to the exam hall...
And something that I said right at the start, if you read a book for the first time and
Yes.
the only time, it's as good as if you have never read that book.
You have secured a negative marks for yourself. You will confuse what UN did with what WTO did, and that is where all the hodgepodge happens.
Is coaching necessary?
First of all, here again it is a subjective question. So coaching is...
Why can't you simply say yes or no?
Because there is no exam in the world which cannot be cleared by self-study. That is a firm belief. But at the same time, this coaching and guidance makes your path much easier because you are in interaction with those people who have walked on this path before. And as important as it is to know what to do, as you have already said, it is much more important to realize what not to do. What are the mistakes that one should avoid doing? So in that aspect, coaching plays a very, very instrumental role there.
So basically time management. For example, if you have to cover polity on your own, you will take maybe 2 months, but in classes you can cover it in 1 month.
1 month.
But that too with holistic explanation and understanding.
Yes. And also you'll get to know which are the areas we have to focus upon, which are the areas that we can, what should be the strategy which should follow. So in those cases, coaching can be a life blessing in that case.
I would like to answer this kind of a question with one of the explanation which was given by Mr. Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, late Mr. Rakesh Jhunjhunwala. He stated that if I have a cold, I'll do the self-medication. But if I want to get a heart transplantation, I'll not do it myself. I'll go to the doctor, a specialist.
You have already declared that this is the toughest exam. Don't take economics as your option. Now you're equating it with heart surgery. Open heart surgery?
So what I would simply recommend is you decide whether this UPSC examination is a cold for you or a heart surgery. Based on that, you take a call. But I would definitely recommend opting a specialist, going to a specialist, because it will make your task very, very easier.
Chethan sir?
Again, depends on the aspirant. But if you ask me, coaching does help. It does give you that path, the direction, simplifying the concepts, identifying the right topics where you have to focus upon.
There are toppers who clear this exam. They join a coaching class. Once they clear the exam, they say, we never went to that coaching class. Your thoughts on that?
Then it shows their integrity there.
No,
if
forget about integrity. To be honest, I haven't seen or interacted with a single topper who has not been associated with one or the other coaching institute.
Either at the level of mocks or at the level of the complete guidance.
Exam itself.
At some or the other stages.
Interview level.
You do require some guidance, some help to better yourself. It is not that we don't know or you as a candidate won't know it. It is just to sharpen your skills, to be able to outsmart the competition. That is where it comes in handy. And that is where it should happen.
So your final thought on this, if you can afford it, opt for it. If you can't, then?
Take guidance from wherever possible. At least get to know that what should be done, what should not be done. And as much as possible, try to streamline the preparation. And also, please, one misconception that many of them have, that as you have already stressed on that just because I have seen the YouTube videos of few of the toppers, I know absolutely everything in and out about the subject. So oftentimes what comes out is not the reality. So that is where one has to take it with a pinch of salt and be very realistic about one's own abilities, and that is where this coaching will come in.
Whether it helps you or not, whether you need coaching or not, but we have 3 different learning programs to excel in the civil services examination. A tablet learning program where you can study at your own pace and convenience with 900 plus hours of recorded video lectures. Then we have a live online classroom program where all of us teach live, morning, evening, over the weekends. And in 840 plus hours, we complete the entire syllabus. And then we have offline coaching as well in a regular brick and mortar setup in Delhi, Bengaluru, Hyderabad, Chennai, Lucknow, Jaipur, Kolkata, Delhi. What are these 3 different learning programs that we have? Should you wish to enroll in these programs or any of these programs, please fill the form that is provided in the link description and our counselors will reach out to you. But let's take a minute and understand the 3 different learning programs that we have for the civil services aspirants. Now we are towards the fag end of this live Ask Us Anything interactive session. Now, Chethan sir had a rapid fire round for us. We'll have a rapid fire round from you now. One by one, if the team can put up as many questions as possible so that we can answer them one by one. When should I start preparing for the interview?
Very simple, when you qualify for the mains.
Yes.
Or at the same time, when you are preparing for this examination, you can also look at what are some types of questions that can be asked in your interview.
The perspective development happens at the time of mains preparation itself. So after the mains examination, we have enough time to be able to follow 2 newspapers or magazines.
And you have enough time after
Yes,
your mains
yes.
exam to prepare holistically for the
Yeah,
interview.
There's no paucity.
How many years of current affairs required, Shyam sir?
1 year.
1 year?
1 year. And
Before
if
the
you have-
prelims?
Yeah, 1 year before the prelims. If you have more time, maybe go beyond 1 year, 15 months, 18 months. But standard is at least 1 year.
Chetan sir, you would
1 year
recommend?
before prelims should be enough, more than sufficient.
Okay.
Yes.
So if I have started my preparation now, the exam is in May.
May.
How do I cover the previous current affairs? By
Then-
looking at the current affairs magazines?
Magazines.
Should that be
Go
enough?
for the monthly magazines, that would be the best way to revise.
So I don't have to go through the archives of the newspaper?
Yes, it's practically
day by day.
impossible to go back, revise the daily newspapers of 6 months.
How to evaluate our answer writing? Share it with your teacher. The teacher will give you a proper feedback. For example, our students, when they write the answers, they share it with us. We give them a feedback over the mail or over the call. Our mentors give them a detailed feedback. Answer writing is the key. The team, if you can put up another list of questions, please. How to avoid negative marks in the prelims general studies?
Again, through practice, with conceptual clarity, try and avoid making those mistakes as much as possible.
And let's say I should aspire for 110 plus in the prelims examination, because then I'll be safe and I can assume that I'm going to appear in the mains exam.
Mains exam.
For that, take a look at the prelims question paper. First, cover only and complete those questions where you are 100% sure that
Sure
this
of.
is the right answer. If in that first round you're able to cross 100, don't opt for any further questions.
But
Then, in the second round, take a look at the questions where you are 50% sure. Make a intelligent guess.
Yeah.
Let's say these are 20 questions, where even if half of them are correct, you have crossed the cutoff.
But never go for a blind guess.
Yes, and then there are some questions which nobody can answer, or very few can answer. You should avoid those questions.
Avoid those questions.
And here one thing we have to be very mindful about is, for example, when we talk about, let's say, negative marks, even in the questions that we are 100% sure about, there will be a couple of negative marks which will happen. It is a part and parcel of the prelims examination. That is the format of the prelims examination. If even the highest...
For example, the question is asking which of the following statements are incorrect. You assume that the
It is
question is
correct.
asking which of the statements are correct. I know the answer, but when you go out, oh my God.
Yeah.
This was
So
a different
blunders
question.
will happen, but it is how to minimize that, and that will come with practice, I think.
More and more mocks.
Yes.
Is prelims preparation possible in 4 months? Everything is possible. As long as you are committed, you are dedicated, you know what your goal is. The syllabus for prelims only can be covered in 4 months. The simple answer is yes. How to interlink static with dynamic?
Take a look at your syllabus, the previous questions.
Can you give few examples?
Let's say, for example, we have a topic related to climate change, which is in news. Recently, the climate change summit happened, right? So you're reading that article in the newspaper. So think about where you can connect this particular topic with your syllabus. Obviously, it'll fit under environment and ecology in GS paper 3.
Something is happening right now in Uttarakhand.
Right.
How can you link it with the static portion?
So, not only in a particular incident, I would say, for example, in Uttarakhand you are saying, but I would pick up from where Chethan sir was saying, that for example, climate change, right? So here, there was this convention on biological diversity, a conference of parties was held. Now, when you read that news stories, oftentimes you are left half-handed in the sense that you don't get the entire information. So that is the time when you pick up the book and you look at it. And that reinforces the concept. Similarly, for example, let's say this is the month. In the month of October, November, and December, you have huge number of cyclonic occurrences across the world. Hurricanes occur across the world. Now we get to know the names of those hurricanes. We get to know the names of those cyclones. That is where we have to investigate. We have to find out how So the W3H approach that is there, when, why, where, and how. So any portion of current affairs that we come across, we have to ask ourselves, are we aware of that? If we are aware of that, then that means the static portion is already revised. Otherwise, we have to look back, and that is the interlinkage which will happen.
For example, the Kerala governor, he was asked by the chief minister that one particular MLA should be sworn in as the minister. He initially said, I will not do that, I will take a legal advice. Now this is current affairs. What is the static portion related to this? Appointment of a minister, which can be done by the governor only on the advice of the chief minister. Doctrine of pleasure, it's a static portion, but linked with current affairs because this development is in the news. For example, there were fights between the People's Liberation Army and the Indian Army in the Tawang sector. Tawang is an area where in 1959, the 14th Dalai Lama, he stayed for some time at a monastery. What is Dalai Lamaism or Tibetan Buddhism? It is one school under Mahayana Buddhism. In Mahayana Buddhism, there are 4 schools of thought. One school is Gelug. The spiritual head of the Gelug is the Dalai Lama. It is argued that the 15th Dalai Lama will come from the Tawang area. The 6th Dalai Lama was born in Tawang. So that is the static portion which is linked to current affairs. For example, I remember it was in 2015 prelims, a question was asked on Congress Socialist Party. That's a modern history question. The Congress Socialist Party was started in 1930s. But that question was asked because it was started by Jayaprakash Narayanan. Why Jayaprakash Narayanan was in the news? Because it was the 40th anniversary of the emergency. Who fought against emergency? JP. So that is the link, how you can link current affairs with the static portion. Will there be Target Prelims 2023 crash course the way BYJU'S provided last year? Also, please tell us how to improve our EQ. Yes, there will be a Target Prelims crash course this year as well. We do it every year. We won't stop this convention. Sir, how to balance work and study?
I think we answered that question.
How?
Well, it is possible to, study, keep, working and balance your studies at the same time.
You are working in a corporate sector.
Yeah.
There will be periodic breaks.
Yes.
Lunch break, cigarette break. There will be break for coffee. Utilize that time to prepare for the current affairs. So plug in your earphones or AirPods, watch the Hindu newspaper analysis on our YouTube, so your daily current affairs is done. Once you go back home, forget about what is the office politics. Just focus on your task,
Subjects.
which is to complete that GS portion.
Right.
That's how you balance.
Use the commute time for your revisions.
Exactly.
I think in a crux, we can say that we have to be honest with ourselves for every second that we spend. And that is where we can be, we will be able to do justice both at the work front as well as the preparation.
It will be difficult to balance the work as well as the preparation.
Making them difficult.
So, if you're working in a corporate structure, let's say weekends, you have a free weekend, then you can utilize it. You'll have to dedicate certain number of hours every day.
I think if you want to do something in your life, you will find a way. If you don't want to do it, you will find an alibi. You will find an excuse. So when often students ask this question, sir, I don't have time, this is a lie, an excuse. We all have time. It's just how do we maximize the time available. You don't have to study at a university or work in a corporate environment for 24 hours. You have to work for 8 hours or 9 hours, even if your work environment is flexible. The remaining part, you can easily devote to your civil services preparation. So if you're saying, I don't even get 3 hours of time to prepare for the civil service examination because I'm working somewhere, I'll bluntly tell you, you're lying. Find out a way, and there is a way where you can devote 3 hours on a daily basis for your civil services preparation. How to increase your accuracy in the prelims exam? Again, by taking as many tests as possible, as many mocks as possible. When to start all India test series? You should have already started if your target is 2023. If your target is 2024, then start after a few months. Sir, I'll attend my UPSC exam in 26. Should I start answer writing from today, or first should I complete my syllabus or then practice first answer writing? I think if your target is 2026, we would suggest complete your syllabus and then start preparing, or complete 50-60% of your syllabus and then start writing answers. Because answer writing should include a lot of current affairs as well. How can we motivate ourselves throughout the preparation? Again, going back to the same question. The first question that you should ask yourself when you set out preparation. Why is this so important for me to clear this exam? The motivation can be anything. I want to serve my society. I want to serve my nation. I want to bring smiles on the faces of the millions of the people. I want to have power, prestige, status in the society. I want to do corruption in the society. Whatever the motivation is, there has to be motivation, and that motivation is key. How to remember all the facts for Prelims 2023. Revise.
And also, not all the facts are required to be remembered. So
Some facts are to be forgotten, right?
some facts are to be forgotten. Life is more peaceful that way.
Sir, how to tackle essay paper effectively? Chethan sir.
I think Mukesh sir
Mukesh
would
sir.
be more appropriate to answer.
I think the more prepared we are in our general studies, the essay paper becomes much more easier for us, because essay is nothing but a kind of an assimilation of all the various ideas, all the various perspectives that you can provide to any particular said statement. An essay is basically a compilation of every information and everything that you want to convey. So there your information and your basic idea of GS is very, very important. So understand the GS and be able to provide the varying perspectives. And that is where brainstorming comes in.
That's about it. Thank you so much for staying with us for the entire duration of 2 hours. If we have been of any help to you, please like this video, subscribe to our channel if you haven't yet, and share the link of this session with your friends and fellow aspirants. Our best wishes with all of you. May all your legitimate dreams come true. May all of you realize the objective that you have set out for. All the best. Stay safe. Good night.